Okay, 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. I'll take roll call now. Mr. Fuller-Love.
Here.
Mr. Dominic.
Here.
Mrs. Lyon.
Here.
Mr. Caver.
Here.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Here.
Mr. Helm.
Here.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Here.
Okay, pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion is made by Mr. Helm, seconded by Mr. Caver, to adopt the agenda as presented. Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mr. Caver.
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Dominic.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller-Love.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we had no recognitions of members of the audience. Moving on to Tiger Talent.
Tiger Talent, as we learned last month, we have transitioned to being able to watch a really cool, awesomely produced video as opposed to staring at me and talking about the person. So tonight will be the second episode of this, and just as a refresher, Tiger Talent are the people within a building who are picked by the principal that you would want that person to be a spokesperson for your building. Just by people meeting that person and interacting with them, they sell the Sherrard district as a great place to be. I know a lot of places will say, our people, is our best, our people are our best assets, etc., but we want to go ahead and prove that. So now we have videographic, is that the right term? Evidence to do so. So with that, I will turn it over to Kayla, and I'll move my huge head out of the way.
Yeah, let me make sure it's gonna be loud.
This month for Tiger Talent, Matherville Intermediate has nominated Jen Schultz. Jen Schultz teaches 6th grade special education for us and does a phenomenal job.
Jen has a lot to offer for our building and for our students. When she transferred here from Winola and working with kindergartners to 6th grade, she just made it look so smooth and so easy, and she's so eager to lend a helping hand whenever needed.
We were at Winola together, and we have, this is what, year 10, I would say, of us being together. We originally were, she taught kindergarten, and I did special ed, so we were co-teachers together, and then now we are sped team together. She's amazing. She is willing to do anything for anyone. She's passionate about what she does. She's here for the kids, and she's a go-to. Everyone can go to her. She's a leader, and she's just easy to talk with and make things better for everyone. As a teammate, she is like the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. She is dependable. She follows through with what she says she's going to do. She's constantly pushing me and pushing the kids to be better. So as a coworker, she's top notch. So this is our first year back together after a couple of years apart. So it's a great camaraderie.
Jen Schultz is somebody who you never have to worry about. She's always doing the right thing. She puts the kids' best interest first and foremost every time. She's always seen in the hallways, talking to kids, building those positive relationships. She's just truly a great person to have in the building.
Anytime that she's in my classroom, so she and I co-teach during the second period, and so anytime that she's in the classroom, she's somebody that I can bounce ideas off of, like currently teaching, or if a student is having a hard time, I can easily ask her, or we can intervene and work together. It's just that I feel like our communication and our work back and forth between our two classrooms is always very smooth, and it transitions very well. And she's usually my first person that I go to, with me being the only 6th grade math teacher. She's my first person I go to ask for ideas, since she sees the inside of my classroom every day.
She is an inspiration to everyone. She's willing to help whenever needed. She drops whatever she's doing and will be right by your side, getting you through whatever you need to do. And she's a great coworker, and she's passionate about what she does.
Jen's one that has high expectations for herself. Failure is never an option. Ever since Jen came to Matherville, she's always put kids first. She's a kid, whether it's one of her special ed students or not. She'll see them in the hallway, she'll talk to them, she'll build those relationships with them. She's always looking out for what's best for the kids. Jen's also a leader on our BLT, building leadership team, where she takes the time to make building-wide decisions.
And the kids really love her, and I think she builds really good relationships with them too.
Like, she's a hard exterior, and that's not her at all. She is a softie. Like, she's your little bear. Like, you can go. She does not like hugs, but she looks hard on the outside, but she is not. She is an easy listener and go-to for anything.
Even if she's ever had a bad day, I don't think I've ever seen her in a grumpy mood. If she does, she hides it well. She's very positive.
She almost is like Aunt Jenny to my kids at this point. Every morning my kids come in and run in and like, can you braid my hair today? So we're all pretty close. Jen feels like family to us at this point now. Like just recently, my husband had an emergency at work and I was waiting for my kid to get off the bus and she was like, no, you go, I got your kid, we'll get it figured out. So it was just nice to be like, I didn't have to worry about anything. She just was like, no, you go. And we were good. So it's kind of nice to have that family here and know you can count on them like outside too. So, which is good because you can count on Jen for just about anything.
If I need something right now, she's the person like I go to and she'll give me ideas, or she'll say, yes, I can cover, or I can do that, or I can explain this. So she's very helpful, and I would say that she's a leader. Like, if we need advice and things like that, or if I need advice, I feel like, her advice is always well taken. It's always something that when she gives it, I don't think we really have to second question ideas and things that she comes up with.
She is a dog mom. We call it the funny farm because she has chickens and there's cows at her house, and there'll be times where she'll be like, sorry, I'm running late, the cows got out today.
We're just happy to have her. So when she made that transition from Winola to here, she's been nothing but positive for us and the kids, and she's very much a welcome tiger with a lot of talent.
Well played, Jen.
She's the best. That's it.
Wait. My favorite part.
Right. Party like it's my birthday.
I can see what's going to happen. I can see where this is going.
So that Jen does not walk away with just an awesome video. She also gets the legendary Tiger Talent Dedication Golden Apple Bell, which you can ring in the face of your colleagues to lord over them that you are indeed a Tiger Talent winner. So, and not to age myself at all, but I had Jen as a student. So I quit teaching in 2005, which meant I had Jen when she was 3.
Group hug.
Can I add that, 6 years ago, how long ago, Jen?
A long time.
I conned her into coaching. We had 36 kids come out for 6th grade volleyball, and I only had one other parent offer to help me coach. And so I went and then begged Jen, and she said she would check with her husband, and then she coached for a fall the Orion League with me, and I was so very thankful because I almost lost my mind.
It was a long season.
It was.
Just so happens you have all 5 all positions open. Yeah, there you go. Already got approval from Mr. Schultz.
No, it's not. It's not easy, I tried.
And also to showcase our incredible talent with our public relations department, our good news report is moving to a totally digital format. Not tonight, just partially digital, but we are moving that direction. So we will have another video. Come on. Those guys will be ready ahead of time. They'll get you everything you need. No. So with that, I will turn it back over to the first part of the good news report.
On to the first ever episode of MTV Mather Television. We'd like to express our gratitude to Holland Anderson, Riley Colbreeze, and Bailey Nelson for creating a 12-man video for our students. In the video, the students are encouraged to watch and learn at the football games, creating a positive experience for everyone.
Thanks, gentlemen. Matherville had 28 5th and 6th graders audition for the Illinois Music Educators Association State Choir this year. The state conference is to be held in January. The results will be released in November.
Great job, musicians! Matherville Intermediate School has been upgraded to a commendatory position after spending 1 year on the targeted list. The Matherville staff workers work hard to make this happen. Way to go, staff and students! The SHS National Honor Society began their hunger drive on September 28th at Matherville Intermediate. High schoolers visited the classrooms and discussed the process of collecting goods for the food bank.
Thanks for helping those in need. Fall conferences, Matherville welcomes families to conferences on October 4th and 5th. Thank you, parents, for taking time to support us.
What a great turnout! The annual TPC Cookie and Pie sale is back. Money from the sales will help provide money to the elementary schools for resources, such as field day t-shirts for Matherville, field trip expenses, clever touch boards, supplies for family nights, and many other items. Anyone interested in ordering, please see an elementary student prior to October 20th. Ooh, I like cookies! I like cookies! Matherville Intermediate will be hosting our annual Halloween parade and festivities on Tuesday, October 31st. We will begin our outdoor event around 2:30. The students will have a short parade around the outside of the building, then return indoors for their classroom parties.
I love Halloween. Congratulations to Mrs. Schultz, this month's Tiger Talent winner. Mrs. Schultz does a wonderful job with her students at Matherville Intermediate School.
Way to go, Mrs. Schultz! The Matherville Music Department is anxiously preparing for our Veterans Celebration at the high school on November 11th. Thank you, veterans, for all your sacrifices. Beat that, SCV!
Nice.
That was definitely
Yes.
Starting fights.
No.
Is that
We did film that when you were right next door, so it was very difficult to keep it all. And those kids did a nice job at not telling either. All right, and for the rest. From Manola, they had successful parent-teacher conferences. Sherrard Grade hosted a SEL-themed family night before fall break. Over 200 guests were in attendance for snacks, activities, and a book fair. Thank you to all those in attendance, and to a special shout out to the Youth Services Bureau for hosting the booth as well. The inaugural student-led conferences went very well with a fantastic turnout for families attending. They're very proud of the hard work that went into making conferences successful, and looking forward to challenging ourselves to meet the shared goals during the second quarter. The gym floor is down, paint is beginning to appear on the walls, and sidewalks are being poured in the new addition. We're still on the projected timeline for the addition and counting down the days. Junior high. So far, the girls' basketball teams are undefeated in 7th and 8th grade conference play and are in the first place in the Prairie Land Conference. I can say, as a fan of the 7th grade squad my daughter's on, conference is horrible. Our closest conference game is going on right now. It is, what did I say, 26-6 at halftime, and that's the closest they've been. They won the other night, 56-0. They beat Rock Ridge. 45-0. So
We're just awesome.
we have good defense, which makes a big difference. But anyway, they're doing great. They're playing hard, and it's great. Just recently, the football team and the girls' basketball teams defeated Rock Ridge. That's always a win. This trifecta of victories has not happened in a long time. And Coach Bob Chandler, the girls' 7th grade coach, received his 225th win as a junior high coach. Students of the month for October were Allison Zigenhorn, Althea Gianovich, Quinn Zimmerman, Ava Wiest, Cameron Green, Lily Monaco, and Alex Siri. At the high school, the following students earned College Board national recognition. They received the National Rural and Small Town Award because of their GPA of 3.5 or higher and outstanding performance on the PSAT, NMSQT, whatever that is, PSAT, 10th and AP exams. Tim, what is that? I've never heard of it.
It's part of that testing series.
Gotcha. I don't have one in 6th grade.
National Merit Scholarship Program.
Gotcha. I never had to worry about that. Those kids are Isabel Estes, Kyler Gross, Samantha Phipps. Andrew Bolin qualified for the state golf tournament after the team won in regionals. Girls cross country team won the track conference. Girls volleyball won our own tournament last Saturday and also went undefeated in the Princeton tournament. Successful round of parent-teacher conferences, and Sherrard High School will be hosting the volleyball regionals with a great seed for our team. That's our good news.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Okay, moving over to the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Mrs. DeBlanc, seconded by Mr. Dominic, to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Mrs. DeBlanc.
Yes.
Mr. Dominic.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mr. Kaber.
Yes.
Mr. Fullerby.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Johnson.
First up on the list tonight, we have our presentation for our audit from our district auditors. Tonight we have with us Sarah, and she is going to talk about all the fun financial things that we have in store for you. So, get ready.
Riveting. I'm going to pass around a handout. So instead of talking about the financial statements themselves, I'm mainly going to talk from this handout. If we get one?
Sharing is carrying Carl.
Do you have more? There you go.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so I took one for myself, but then I handed that one to you and you kept all the rest.
We'll let it slide.
All right. If we turn to the first page, or the second page, I guess, it talks about the deliverables. So during the course of the audit, we do the 2023 financial report, which is your bound document. The annual financial report, which is the clipped document. This document is also filed with the Illinois State Board of Education, and they use it for all of their numbers and statistics. And then you would have received 2 letters. One is a communication with you as the board, and the second one is what we refer to as a control deficiency letter or a management letter. So the next page I usually refer to kind of as the report card of the audit. When we come out to do the audit, we do 3 different types of audit. The first one's a financial statement audit. The district did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of opinion that you can receive. There is an emphasis paragraph in that opinion because you are on the cash basis of accounting. The second type of audit that we do is the government auditing standards audit, and the purpose of that's twofold. One is to look at your internal controls or your checks and balances, if you will, and to test them to make sure that they're functioning as they were designed to function. And the second piece of that audit, we look at compliance with laws, regulation, contracts, and grants. The district also received a clean opinion with that audit. There were no material weaknesses reported, no significant deficiencies reported, and no compliance findings reported. So, very good report. And the last type of audit, it's been working for a couple years to get that alleviated, so that is really good news. The last audit that we do is the federal single audit. This year the district had about $2.4 million of federal expenditures. And with that, there were no findings. We tested the ESSER program this year. There were no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, nor compliance findings. And if you'll remember last year, there was a finding over the ESSER program, but that was corrected this year and resolved. So again, very clean report. Okay, and then the next few pages are just kind of a summary. The first one is your receipts of the district. In 2023, the district had about $23.3 million in receipts compared to $36.7 million the year before, which is about a $13 million decrease. But don't worry, the majority of that was due to issuing bonds last year that were not, of course, issued again this year. As of June 30th, 2023, you had $13.5 million outstanding on those bonds. Another large decrease you'll see is in the charges for services. And so not only did you issue new bonds, funding bonds, but you also did a refunding bond of your 2013 bond. And so that's reflected within the charges for services. And that's offset by an increase in revenue for charging for lunch programs again. And you'll see also that in your operating grants and contributions, you had a decrease of about $700,000. And the majority of that is the federal money that subsidized lunch programs in the previous year. Okay. The next graph looks at your disbursements. In 2023, your total disbursements were about $29 million compared to about $25.2 million the year before. So it's about a $3.7 million increase. Almost all of that is sitting within your support service, which increased about $6 million. And that's due to about $7 million in capital projects this year that you were spending that bond money that you issued the year before. So it went to the addition of the grade school, your re-roofing projects, greenhouse and gym, and your HVAC projects. And that is offset by a decrease in the debt service by about $2.7 million. And again, you refunded those bonds the year before, and that would have been reflected within that line item. The next graph is looking at your operating funds. So this is your educational, operations and maintenance, transportation, and your working cash funds. The equity of those funds is about $12.1 million. This year, your increase was about $825,000. And so your ending equity in those funds represent about 227 days of operating expenditures, which is similar to the prior year. It was about 222. A couple other things to point out based on the annual financial report, or the annual financial report that's filed with the Illinois State Board of Education. Your financial profile this year is a 3.9 on a 4.0 scale. Last year it was a 3.8, so you are up from that a year ago. And you were designated as a recognition for both fiscal years. So again, good report. And then the last page is just looking at some statistics. All of this information also is 10 years of it are within the bound document in the back. Your average daily attendance increased over the previous year. Your operating expenditure per pupil is the $12,811. And the red line, that's the state line. So that's the combination. And it runs a year in arrear because they wait until we file all of these documents so that they have that information. So the state's operating expense per pupil is about $17,800. Any questions?
No repeat findings this year?
No findings this year.
Troy never got to see it.
That is a little sad.
For you to take care of those. 2 years ago, we looked at some of the activity funds, and I think it would be time for us to relook at our band and booster ones, because the year we looked at them was like during COVID, so it was not a normal operating year of not a lot of receipts and things like that. So for next year, I would like to add the activity funds because it's been 2 or 3 years
It will
since.
have been, yeah, if we do it again this summer, it will have been 2. I believe.
Yeah, and we might have even done those like
I thought it was like
the year
20.
before and issued them
It was like
late.
it was the year like we finally got to go back to sports, so like the 2020, 2021
That sounds right.
school year. So having, like, it was good, but it didn't give us the full picture, so
Okay.
we're gonna probably wanna do that again. Always appreciate it, Sarah. Always like this simple chart.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So one thing, I didn't want to lead with this because that might indicate that I was trying to get Sarah to say something favorable before her report. But now that she's finished, I will say, Lindsay and I rely on Sarah and Mia to such a tremendous extent. If there are any questions, Lindsay can call or email, or I can call or email, and we get answers quick. So I know the board gets to see it really once a year, or hear about it maybe a couple times a year, but the auditing relationship that we have is literally 12 months. It just gets a little heavier in the fall and in June, but it's great to be able to have somebody with that kind of financial knowledge to reach out to, and it could be, sometimes they're great big questions, sometimes they're little questions, but that overriding theme of making sure we don't have findings and or repeat findings is something that it's great to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and get an answer right away. So thank you for always being available when we need it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Congrats.
Nice job, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Night, Sarah.
Good night, thanks.
Get to the right page here. The next piece we have is, we had a technical glitch in Springfield. I know, hold on to your hat. But it was not, our architect had entered it appropriately in the IWAS system, but it had not appeared correctly. So the sheet that is now attached in board documents that looks just like this, okay, it talks about a health life safety amendment that I'll be asking the board to approve tonight. This is for 3 exterior doors at Sherrard that did not, actually they were there today, so I can tell you they didn't pass inspection because the actual door frames are, lack of a better term, rusting out, rotting away. And we can get a significantly better deal while construction crews are on site with the addition. So if this is something that we can do now, it's going to save us probably 15 to 20% is what they mentioned. So this would be on the northeast side, 2 on the northeast, so one of them, for example, walking out the library. Mr. Fuller saw me today when I had to open that door to let somebody in from the construction site. I had to use my foot and give it a kick once I got it open. But again, those doors need to function as emergency exits. And again, they didn't pass the inspection today. So I'll be asking the board to approve a grand total of $26,650 at most for those doors.
Questions on that?
Which were the other two?
On the other side of the building. Same wing, other side. It opened towards the scenic near retention pond.
It's a water feature.
It's the whole frame and everything.
No.
Inflation, inflation.
The waterfront entry.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to amend the approval for the Sherrard Grade School exterior doors.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Mr. Caver, seconded by Mrs. DeBlock, to amend the approval for the Sherrard Grade School exterior doors. Mr. Caver.
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mr. Dominic.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item up, we have a summary of student-led conferences. I printed off something for everyone today because there's some survey results on there and I wanted to leave the survey open longer than just Monday. So I will pass that out on a piece of, actually it's because I'm old and I prefer paper as opposed to staring at the screen.
Thank you. And it's colorful.
Yes, how about that? So So, as we talked before, this was the first foray for Sherrard into student-led conferences. There's some figures on the front there. This is based on the overall population of each school, so how many families were actually reached, how many kids, and then how many of them were actual true student-led conferences. So what you see is pretty standard in terms of age groupings. The older the kids get, the less they want to hang out with their parents, and the less that they want to do something like student-led conferences. So that would be about the same. However, so we'll start at the bottom there with Sherrard. Sherrard grade had about a 92% overall completion rate, about 85% of the population were true student-led conferences. And I have breakdowns of all these that the principals were kind enough to provide, so literally down to the name of the student. So we can look and see who was there and who wasn't, or what the reasons were. Now these are just the actual in-person conferences. So if there was a situation where someone was working and couldn't make it, or it was a Zoom conference, that's not included on here. So our overall totals for conferences were higher than what you see here. These are just the in-person ones. Okay. Winola, 94% and 87%. Matherville, 91 and 72. Junior high, 75% for each. And then Sherrard High School, 41% overall, and then 34% were true student-led conferences. That is about a pretty standard, from what the principals have told me, for everything except the high school, which was about a 3-fold increase for number of families that were reached. Some of the survey information is on the back there. I sent out a teacher survey, which I have the full survey if anybody wants to see that. We had 61 responses, and in looking at the improvement piece, the survey item that is listed here, choose your highest priority for assistance or professional development on the topic of student-led conferences. Your top choice is number 1 and so on. So you can see the choices that had been listed on the right, and then basically what people wanted to see, and we can break that down about 27 different ways if anybody's interested. Okay.
How many, so you got 61 responses, how many people were the survey sent to?
About 110.
How long did they have to complete the survey before you printed this?
A week, I believe.
Do you actually have numbers over last year?
I do. Let me look here. Let's see, I believe it was the high school, I'm sorry, I'm looking through the documents that the principal sent me. I think it was up, last year at the high school was 44, I believe. This year was 154 families. Let's see. Rick, you sent it to me in an email, right?
Yes.
Junior high, we had, out of 203 students, we had 152. I thought it interesting that Mr. Vasala also noted 33 of those conferences, siblings came along. I did see some coloring tables. That's the rooms I stopped at and visited.
We had 60% last year and so we went up 15%. We went from 60 to 75%.
Let's see, and then the elementaries actually reported by classroom. So I could either share that sheet with you, or I can do some additional.
They're all pretty high anyway. Well, it's good increase.
Anecdotally, and Carrie, you can speak to this if you want to. Anecdotally, the overall attendance rate for the elementaries is similar to what they experienced last year. Okay.
We stalk the parents until they either talk to us on the phone or do it online, or, yeah, we're always close to 100% at all the elementary buildings, so.
And I like, and Casey has another function tonight, so he wasn't here, but it was kind of funny on his email. He made clear at the end of it, we have X number of conferences so far, ... meaning he is also
We still
continuing
have
to
some,
stalk.
yeah, we'll be closer to 100 at the
So.
end, so.
There was an open-ended question for the conferences. What would be the most beneficial change we could make to student-led conferences before next fall? So, most of those indicated more time. A lot of it, you can, the secondary, if you start to disaggregate the data out to the secondary level, talked a little bit more about giving staff members an opportunity to have a plan on how they're going to divide kids up. Who's going to conference with who. Start the process at the beginning of the year, because some, and again, I know there's the type A folks that at backpack night they're scheduling conferences. So I heard that from 2 different schools. Let's see. I had one parent specifically tell me they didn't want to come to conferences. A hybrid method, emphasizing parents they can still meet with additional teachers if they want to. Training for parents and students at the high school level. Guidance on what to effectively collect for sample materials. Let's see, not having other events in the district on those nights. I know that in the fall, obviously, it's a busy time, so that's tough, but there are 61 responses for that one too. So if the board would like to see a printout of that, or I can just share the survey as a
Can you share it?
editor, yeah.
Parents or teachers? 'Cause
These are
this is
teachers.
teachers.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
teachers.
Just some of the comments made it sound more like a parent.
I think he was talking about what parents were, comments they were getting from parents.
That's what I was asking, is that from parents?
No, they were passing on comments. that
Oh,
they
the
got from
teachers would
parents.
pass on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Gotcha. From an elementary perspective, it was really nice to hear both of my kids talk about themselves. And it highlighted the difference in my kids' personalities, because my daughter is very serious, sat opposite of me with her paper in hand and like went through each and every thing and explained. And Gus is like standing off to the side like, did this, Mom? That's mine up there. We're working on stuff.
Does everybody want in on this, the survey?
Good.
Yeah.
It's editors, so don't go putting additional questions on there. So, what questions did the board have for me, or to the best of my ability, I'll answer.
My take was the elementary one went really well. I don't think, in full disclosure, I don't think my daughter took it as serious as she could. And so it was a very different experience with them, which then I asked her if she was happy with her performance afterwards, and she kind of clambered up after that. But I could see a drastic difference. I thought the elementary one was great. Other things that I thought were sort of interesting, the skill sets that hopefully they can learn is at least both my children underrated themselves to what they were actually doing, which I'll give credit to Mr. Veranda, who was very good at using it as a teaching point to point out, like, hey, you said you were here, you actually did this, and so it was nice to kind of have that three-way conversation. So I think it's good for them to start having introspective kind of conversations, but I definitely think more time is needed next year.
So there was nobody 2 slots following Elise's 7th graders. and we took 45 minutes, but she very much is like your daughter. We went through every slide, and the facilitator that we had and myself didn't say anything the whole time. She had our attention for 45 minutes. My older girls were unimpressive, and they're my kids.
That's a better word.
It was, they were not prepared. It was like they were hanging out with their buddy in the room with the facilitator. I had to be like, and we're all joking around, and I was like, I can look at their grades, right? I can do that. They're doing fine. They're doing well. I want to know, are they performing to their abilities? Are they truly working hard? Like, do they jack around in class all the time, or are they actually paying attention? And the facilitator did say to me, he's like, I don't feel like they're fully applying themselves. Okay, that's the stuff I want to know, because I can look at their grades online. With the 7th grader, I wanted to ask her teachers, like, is she respectful? Does she let her classmates have a voice, or is she the dominant one all the time? Like, those are the concerns I have. And so I think not meeting with all the individual teachers, and I know we can go on and do that, but not having the ability just to be like, hey, does this XYZ happen, is a place that I felt that there was a bit of a disconnect. And I know that the lack of involvement and preparation falls on my 2 older girls. Like, that wasn't the system's fault. They were just there because they had to be there, kind of thing. But it worries me because they are decent kids and they get good grades. Like, if there's a student that comes in that's struggling and the kid has that attitude there and the parent is like, well, I don't know why I'm here, I don't want to come here anyway. Like, what's really going to hold them accountable going forward?
We had some, and this kind of came to me secondhand, how should I say, it was a summary of some things that some folks at the secondary level had. There was a little bit of a struggle on to what extent do we push the kids to be prepared. There was quite a variety, I will say, of feelings amongst the staff. Some of them thought that this was a great idea, and making kids self-assess, making kids set goals, making kids lead the conversation was a good idea. And I think that when you look at the attendance numbers specifically, that bears out. Those teachers had a significantly larger number of their assigned kids show up. That was, don't want to cause a rift, if you will, on the staff, but it was just interesting to hear a variety of opinions, all the way from this was the worst idea since, sliced bread, down to this is awesome.
Yeah. And I'm not blaming it on our facilitator. I'm just saying, like, my girls hold some accountability in that as well. Do not get me wrong. Even their posture was awful.
And hopefully it's something.
Don't get me
And hopefully it's something that, and I joked with the kindergarten teachers, they were the ones that were really getting the short end of the stick with this, because they're gonna have to start from scratch every year, versus every other teacher in the district is going to have kids that at least have some familiarity with it. So, but the kindergarten teachers have a good sense of humor.
Don't you think it'll get better the older they get? They've done it for 2 or 3 years now, and started in 4th grade or whatever. By the time they get 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade, they're more used to it.
It's a growing
Hopefully be more prepared with it and stuff. The other thing, are the teachers giving the kids any time, 5 minutes in class or anything, kind of going over stuff to help them prepare with it?
Some of them gave some pretty extensive time, some of them not much. So.
Well, and knowing what's coming for next year, because it is a big process, and it's something you start day one, not at the end of the quarter. And that, so I think by getting the teachers, like they mentioned, even, what to collect, how to set goals, and that they can start that day one, and build that portfolio, because then the student-led conference will guide itself if you get that strong portfolio. And that starting young, building it is going to make it easier too for those high school students. I'll admit I did not attend, and that I know what my daughter's doing. She tells me every day. And we had things going on, and it was my conferences too, and it was hard for me to get in. So, it does get easier, but it's still going to be hard at high school.
or something like that.
Oh, it is, yeah, without a doubt. And I was being completely serious when I said by the time kids get to high school, they want to spend less time with their parents, and certainly less time with their parents doing this type of thing. I had between after the office and before this meeting, I had a meeting at Moline High School, so, yep, I'm right there. So.
Kim, the other thing I heard you say was that you had questions, and so being a special ed teacher, one of the parts of the forms that I have to fill out is what are parent concerns. So when we're looking at conferences next year, maybe that's a question that the facilitating teacher needs to send out to parents, or like, what concerns do you have, so that they can make your kid can make sure to address it,
Yeah,
or
good idea.
are suggested to address it. I like
So I've got a question. Were there minimum deliverables communicated to the students?
It was honestly left up to the teachers in terms of we want the kids to be there with some work samples. Type A teachers took that and ran with it pretty hard. More relaxed, probably wasn't much. Just things that the overall guidance was things that the kids would be comfortable talking about. So, tried not to set something like that the first year, to be honest with you.
Is that something that you could explore moving forward?
Yeah, I think that was, and in the open comment section for sure, it said that about what, clear expectations on what you want the kids to have.
Right.
So, and that was part of the spirited discussion that I'd heard about, that some teachers had kids present something that was pretty significant, other teachers not so much.
Yeah, I think, I guess my perspective as the kids get over the high school level, I think it becomes more of a marketing thing, is to not necessarily it's you coming in telling your parents what you need to work on, but come in and tell your parents the successes you've had, to kind of brag upon yourself, try to market it that way.
Yeah.
And you may get a little bit better participation rate at the high school level. Hopefully have the kids come away with a better feeling about what's taking place.
This is your presentation on how to raise your allowance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
almost like a negotiation.
But it's almost like if they're gonna go, in some ways, learn to talk about themselves in front of people, they're gonna start applying for jobs.
Yeah, they're gonna have
techniques, and
it's perfect practice.
Building a resume.
Absolutely.
Spring conference, even though they were almost done.
mock interviews.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, all right. Okay, as you look through the survey, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know. If you've never done a Google survey before, as an administrator, just click along the top and you can start breaking things down as well. All right, let's see. Okay, next on the list, you have a handout that looks like that. Oh, I don't have it posted on the front of it, from Bernardi Securities.
Was there somebody else that used to do this? We switched. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he retire or what was that?
Yep.
Yes.
David Pistorius,
That's the guy.
very big tall guy.
Yeah.
Nice guy. David retired. Okay. Actually, First Mid States is no longer functioning.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So David and the owner retired, and everybody else is in various locations.
I think I remember you telling us that, but it just reminds me.
So I found out from a competitor that First Mid-States had decertified, if you will. They'd removed themselves from the trade officially with the FEC. So obviously a competitor jumped on that and was sending emails to schools that had used First Mid-States in the past. Hey, your bond council's out of business type thing. So I panicked when I saw that and, you know, sent an email to David, who I then learned was retired, and then Pat McCree, another gentleman in the office. He was the last person in the office, so I spoke with him. And in my panic, I reached out to someone who I knew that used to work at First Mid-States, and this is Kevin Wills, right underneath of our logo there. Kevin was the first representative from First Mid-States that I met when I was at United Township, then went on to work with him while he was with First Mid-States, also went on to work with him at Kelowna when we did a bid issuance there. Called Kevin, he kind of knew the backstory and filled me in a little bit and said, here's what we can do. It's possible some of the First Mid-States guys might be familiar faces in the future, the ones who've not yet retired. So Kevin immediately said, don't panic unless you're wanting to bond out right away. Do you want to bond out right away? And I said, no, we just got to doing it. I just want to be able to, similar with what I said about Sarah with the auditors, it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody that's servicing your bonds and say, hey, for example, what's the accurate levy number? This is what I read, is that accurate? We have continued filings with the FEC so that we're in compliance with all of our bonds. When First Mid-States dropped out, we had to start paying for that. Okay, we had to start paying Chapman and Cutler to do those things. You'll probably remember earlier in the year when we had to look at that. So, long story short, as I panicked, I called Kevin and said, hey, what's the situation? He put us at ease and first put this presentation together, so I'll just walk through a little bit of that. And this is not binding. We're not issuing new bonds. We don't need a new bond council right now. Basically, Kevin said this will give me a chance to prove myself by maintaining what you already have and being your contact, so that if you do decide to borrow money in the future, you'll think that we're the first call. So it's basically building the relationship that's not going to cost us anything right now. Okay, so let's see, as we look through here, a lot of it is just about them, so I will flip to the part where it gets about Sherrard, which is page 15. This is the sheet that Lindsay and I rely heavily on to determine what is happening with our bonds, okay? So if we look down that far right column where it says grand total debt service, that's the magic number that we need to look at for the tax levy every year. Okay, now, yes, I can read that this year it's going to be 1.1, just over 1.1 million, but it's also nice to be able to call somebody and talk through that and say, okay, where's this money going? Is this the accurate number? Because again, with the levy, you get one shot to make this right. So this is the debt overview of the bonds that we currently have. So you can see the payment restructure goes out to 2036. And that was a very, very, very fortuitous bond issuance as we look back at it, because when you look all the way down at the bottom, across there, the interest rates, 2%, 3%, 1.36. I think we'd all agree it'd be nice to have those rates right now if we want to look at borrowing money. So the next page, this just talks about our debt margin, and again, this is probably stuff that First Mid-States went through before you issued bonds 3 years ago. But this covers everything that we qualify for, if you will, as a district. Okay, the bottom line, again, on page 16, the legal debt margin. If we so chose to do that, we still legally could borrow another $16.5 million based on our budget and our EAV. Okay, so bottom line, we still owe $15.6 million. We could borrow that much plus more again legally. Now, it's probably like a good way to put it would be like your credit card. Just because you have a $10,000 approval rate, please don't use $10,000. But again, I tend to be pretty conservative like that. Page 17, working cash bonds. So if the 16 million to borrow additionally is not enough, it looks like we would also qualify for another $9 million. The reason that I point out page 16 and 17 is because these are very, very useful financial tools when we start talking about things like the budget and the levy. This demonstrates the fiscal responsibility that the board has shown for a long time. Okay, you don't get these kind of numbers if you're always maxed out your credit card, so to speak, if you're always borrowing to the hilt. The board and obviously Alan have done a phenomenal job for a long time of making sure that your financial house is in order. Okay, so that's why you can look at these numbers, and I got to admit, that was a little bit of sticker shock for me too. I was like, we can borrow another $25 million, are you kidding me? But then you start to break it down and you see, here's why you could do this, okay? But again, working cash bonds, I don't know the last time Sherrard has issued working cash bonds. I did not see any of those issuances, but those are, the easiest way to put it, you have more flexibility with how you use those. And there's a couple write-ups on page 18 that just kind of describes what you can use those bonds for. Okay? Flipping over to page 19, the only other one that I would point out, we've had and still have the general obligation bonds. The other one that's interesting that we might want to look at in the future if interest rates ever come back down are the alternate revenue source bonds. And what happens with the alternate revenue source bonds? Those are not paid with property tax the same way all the other ones are. That's essentially you have another revenue stream that you use to pay for those, and in Illinois with counties with the 1 cent sales tax, that's usually the revenue stream that you use.
So basically, instead of, I think we get like about $500,000 a year on our, we could basically borrow like 3 or 4 million and then just put our, instead of taking the cash into our general fund, we just, our 1% automatically goes to the bond.
Exactly. That's a nice way to demonstrate to the community that you're really taking advantage of that 1 cent sales tax law.
Maximize it.
Yeah, you're sharing it with everyone, not just property owners, I guess is the best way to put it. So that was the bond that I first worked with Kevin as a superintendent on at Kelowna. It was borrowed just short of $1 million to do a big track and parking lot project. So, and that was alternate revenue. So every year when that money would come in, or should say every month when that money would come in, X number a month was set aside that went into a separate account, and then when the bill came due, usually in December, throw the check out of that fund. Okay. So, but again, this is a lot of information in there. Obviously, it talks about Bernardi Securities as a business, pretty well known. Like I said, Kevin was the first call I made because getting to know him while I was at UT in Kelowna, he's a very easy to talk to guy. Does not come across as a financial analyst, not that I want to make stereotypes, but he's a good guy, and I think that this is a worthwhile step to give him an opportunity to prove himself and to help us out in a pinch, literally. So, questions?
I'm just thinking that the long term, 15, 20 years down the road, you're gonna have buildings that are 70 some years old. So at some point, I think you need to kind of get a preliminary plan of what, gonna keep on dumping money into old buildings, you're gonna put new. And so I think if you had that long-term plan, you can kind of think what you're doing with your finances now.
One campus.
Huh?
We tried
that. I'm not saying what that plan is it rebuilding right next door or whatever, but. Yeah, I mean, like I said, probably,
That's
I probably won't be on the board back, in 10 years when you guys start doing that, but I think it's good to start having that plan now. Yeah, you know, so.
And that's a timely discussion because Scott Johnson, our architect, is doing the 10-year health, life, safety right now. So when we start looking through that, that's when you start to talk and say, what do you see as I can see all the little violations, and I don't mean little because it was very expensive, but like the doors at Sherrard, the lights in the auditorium at the high school, those things are immediate needs because they're not going to pass the safety inspections. That's when you have those conversations with the architects about what do you see long term. You know, we still have a couple roofs over at Rick's place that need to be replaced. So, not that he's done Johnny on the spot with the trash can to catch the drips, but you know, is that a sign of something bigger? You know, now is the time we have those conversations.
Yeah, because it's how much money you want to continually put into these buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that we can't. It's just I think that needs to be planned for now. I mean, to get a general idea of what the future is for the district in 20 years as far as facilities or 30 years or whatever, but to start making those plans now. Sure.
The further ahead you plan, the better rates you're gonna get, better opportunity.
Yeah, and so when, you know, a low rate does come around or whatever, then, but, you know.
And the long term, at least, I shouldn't say long term, but the recent history with the state has been, the state of Illinois has been more emphasis on education funding and stabilizing that for the long term. So for example, the evidence-based funding formula, you know, when they first started talking about that, I literally laughed out loud and said, not gonna happen. And hey, it's happened, and not only has it happened, they've been pretty detail-oriented in making sure that they're listening to what ISB is saying, what the professional organizations are saying. So there's hope, and what I'm getting at is that most of the time, if you want to build something like that, of that magnitude, you have to have some additional state aid. Hopefully Illinois is getting to a place where they can start to offer that again. So.
I doubt they'll ever do it again, but in the late 90s, I want to say it was, Illinois had a matching grant type of fund. That's how Farmington ended up with a new high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like kind of looking, if we're going to do it, you might as well look to see when there could be matching grants or something like that.
Yeah, assessment needs to be made of, you know, what schools are in worse condition and everything, and, you know, what you're gonna work on first.
Anticipate,
you know.
Anticipate it.
So.
Which that was part of like with the bond though we did. I mean, we kind of did that this last
Well, we
month.
had to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting to that point where, you know, we had to put some money, you know, into the buildings for major stuff, so.
That is one thing I can say.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
When talking to Alan, you know, having gone over to Rocky, he goes, that is the one thing I did not realize how much better we were was our facilities. He's like, there's always gonna be things that you're gonna find broken buckets here or there. He's like, everything is broke over there, and they could spend a lifetime trying. So I'm not saying, I'm saying we gotta do it, but I do feel like our buildings are in better shape than maybe others.
I got some compliments from some people from Erie, and in a nutshell, school finance-wise, Erie is at the top of the haves versus anybody else have not. I mean, because they've got a power plant in their district, so money's not really an issue. And we had some very, very nice compliments from some people from Erie that I know that were there on Saturday, just saying, you know, your facilities are always nice. Look at those video scoreboards. I was like, that's right, get on out of here. And now I have to quote Alan Boucher, when people leave Sherrard, I want them to go back to their facilities and feel bad. He told me that multiple times, and you guys probably heard it too. So, all right. But no, so the 10-year health life safety survey should be, I guess Scott's gonna be done with that pretty soon. So that'll be a topic either next month or December for sure.
Question about what's included in the 10-year health life safety survey. So speaking of things that are broken, at my job, I was helping a young lady who's in a wheelchair because the doors that, like the fire doors in the hallways, that kind of stuff, she wasn't able to push through them and have them be open long enough for her wheelchair to go through. And I know that that's like a thing. She and I looked it up. Like they have to stay open for X amount of seconds. for wheelchair people. So then when you had said that you had to kick the doors open, I was asking which ones because every year Gus walks around the building as part of his 504 plan to make sure that he can enter and exit all the doors, that they're not like sticking too much.
Sure.
Because he's at an odd angle. Is that kind of stuff included in the 10-year health life safety plan, or
Yep.
like is that everything?
So there's 2 stages to that. The 10-year plan, it has to be done by our registered architect, and it's a extensive, like in excess of $20,000 process. But statutory, according to state statute, it has to be done every 10 years and registered with the state board. The other piece is what was happening today, where the state fire marshal and the regional office come around, and they've essentially got the same checklist, and they literally walk around and try all the doors and try all the emergency lights.
Oh, that's when we all hide the
ventilation
door
and stuff.
stops.
That's when
and-
teachers hide their door stops.
That's
yes.
that, okay.
Your magnet idea, you know about the strips, they came in and took all ours. Can't do that. We would do it so our
Yeah.
doors wouldn't lock.
Yeah.
Yeah, our safety guy took all. So I got new ones.
I got Sue in trouble.
Because they're like,
We get cited out. We've never gotten cited for ours.
Yeah.
But we have to have
it
door
wasn't
stops.
cited, no, this is just our
Oh, the rock.
personal
Oh.
in our district.
Oh, why?
What a Nazi.
Because our doors are very locked all the time
They're locked all the time.
and attached.
And no air freshener. Glade plug-ins, get rid of them.
Yes.
But they smell like puppies. All right. That wasn't even my line. All right. Any further questions on bonding? Again, we'll have a extensive conversation about the 10-year health life safety plan when it comes due, because I'm sure there'll be some suggestions in there. Right now, the only big ticket items that I see as a definitive need are a couple of roofs at the high school, junior high complex. Replaced a lot of it this summer. There's still more. So, all right, awesome. Next up, preliminary levy discussion. I have, again, this is because I'm old and I don't want everybody staring at the screen. I do have a handout with a chart here, also in color.
So many trees. Yeah. I forgot to ask. I need to ask Mr. Remington, but that's okay. I'll just, he's like, I
Get
heard
this
myself.
up on over here.
Don't leave, I gotta ask you something before you leave. Thank you, there.
I will put this up so everybody can see what we're talking about, and you don't just have to imagine statistics in your head. If you're like me. This is again, the preliminary worksheet for our levy. This is gonna form the basis for what we turn in before the end of December. Okay, sorry, I forgot that it shut off. The first big eye opener is that our estimated EAV, okay, the valuation of all the property in our district, according to our 2 counties, this is not our speculation, according to our 2 counties, it is up about 6.5%. I think so. Hey, look at that. That's the wrong one.
Wrong one. Go ahead. Close or pause.
Close that one.
Was that one?
Yeah, do that cover touchdown. Click on that. What's your student conferences? Oh, you're sharing that.
Let's all do that. Look at that, huh? Coach Johnson with the technology. It's the little things, guys. Okay.
I couldn't do it.
You practiced all day on this, didn't you?
No, Steve, did I even ask you?
Not once.
No.
Completely, I won't say self-taught, I just didn't bother anybody today. All right. Okay, now I get to be a social studies teacher again, check this out. Okay, up here are numbers, these are real numbers, our EAV. Oh, you can't touch it, can you?
It's a touch
Hence
screen.
clever touch.
Touch it.
Throw it, man. It's all part of the program, folks. All right. Our EAV last year, 203 million, just over 203 million. Our estimate, I put in 106. Now the counties say it's going to be about 217 million. I just put 6 in there because it was a nice round number. So our estimated increase valuation of every property within the Sherrard School District is an increase of just over $12 million. Now, last year at this time, my comment was, I even looked back at my notes, the wave has to end, and I thought that last year that was it. I think we went up about 4.5% last year. Now they've said it's anticipated to go up, and when I say they, I'm talking county officials, the treasurers. Okay, so bumping up. Now to get to the operative piece.
Did they say why it's going up? But do they have an explanation why it's going up?
Realistically, it's because farmland is being reassessed, and a big part of that is, and I'm kind of a novice at this, it's not as much of a comparison shopping as, say, real estate and listing your house. But if houses that sold for $180,000 last year are now selling for $200,000, that's inevitably going to have an effect on your property taxes. Okay, mine went up again. Okay, and it's not because we did anything special. It's literally just because that's what the market's bearing. So, and I understand there's been a lot of farmland reevaluation lately, and most of our net worth, if you will, in Mercer County is farmland. So. The ones that you see in yellow are major funds. Those are locked in by law. We have approved rates. The ones that are blue are basically those that you take what you need. That's where it becomes very important that you only take what you need. Because if we wanted to double, say, Social Security to $608,000 legally, the board could vote to do that. Now, yes, it comes out of your bottom line, but those are known as the take what you need levies. The other ones, the big ones, are set. So our maximum rates, these are the maximum rates at some point in time throughout the history of the district, have been approved by voters. Okay, so our maximum, the ed fund is the big one, so we'll just use that as an example. $2.59. Now, we are usually around $2.40, $2.45. Okay, we are always well below the maximum rate for the ed fund. Let me scroll over a little bit here. The magic number down here, 105%. The state of Illinois says if you are going to collect more than 105% of what you did last year, you have to have what's called a truth in taxation hearing. Now that is obviously set so that you just don't take as much, so the board can't vote to take as much money as is humanly possible and not have any accountability for it other than the natural election. So if you want to take more than 105%, and Lindsay and I just set this at 105% this afternoon as the base number so that we had something to talk about. Because this spreadsheet is so interconnected, if you don't fill everything in, you don't have anything to talk about. So, but if you want more than 105% of actual dollars that you collected last year, you have to have a truth in taxation hearing, publicize it in the paper, etc. Okay? I honestly can't say the last time Sherrard had a truth in taxation hearing, essentially because property values for the last decade have went up enough that the tax rate has gone down. Okay? I can tell you that when your EAV increases 6.5%, if you keep your tax rate stable, okay, if you keep your overall rate stable, but everything else goes up 6.5%, you're automatically going to be over this. Okay, so, I mean, it's literally, so I guess if we collected the same tax rate as last year, we're gonna have to have a truth in taxation hearing come December. Okay? Because, not that you're raising somebody's taxes. The only way you can raise somebody's taxes is by creeping closer to these limits right here. Okay, let's quit touching, sorry.
The teachers.
But, we leveled it off at 105 just so that we had something, because these are the numbers that you're looking at if you don't want to have the truth in taxation hearing. Now, that's kind of a catch-22, because everything, I know I'm preaching to the choir, everything costs more. Everything is going up, okay? If we keep dropping the tax rates down, eventually we're going to paint ourselves into a corner, and that's a problem. Now, I'm not saying that we have to go higher than 105, I wouldn't say that's my recommendation right now. But if we already have the lowest tax rate in the area. Okay, remember from last year, the only district around here that's comparable to us that has a lower tax rate is Riverdale. And their EAV per student blows us away. Okay, they've got evidently a lot of very high dollar property. So they can afford to have a lower rate. But if we keep dropping the tax rate, at some point in time, you have to raise it. Remember, nobody sends you flowers when you drop the tax rate, but they'll send you something if you raise it. So that's a very delicate balance. So to give you an example, and this number here, okay, is what matters when you compare it to last year. So last year we brought in, $7,802,000. If we bump that up by 5%, that would bring in $8.192 million. Okay, does that make sense so far? Now, if you want to bring in more in the ed fund, for example, put that as a 7% increase, you have to drop that from somewhere else. Okay, so again, it's the net numbers that you have to worry about to get to this. Now, a fine argument to show to anybody, taxpayers, school employees, whatever. This Lindsay was kind enough to do this. Here is the, I'm gonna call it the money left on the table, if you will. Get that back up there. If we levied statutorily what we're guaranteed by law, what's already been approved by voters at some point in the history of Sherrard, these are the numbers above this, what could be collected. So you start to see why Sherrard's been able to lower the tax rate pretty consistently as values have risen. Okay? And these are, you know, obviously some pretty big increases if you wanted to go for the max that you're allowed by law. Okay? I would say this would probably, Lindsay, did you even calculate it? That's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 112%.
I didn't calculate it.
So. And then on top of that number is what your bonds are that have been previously approved by the voters. Okay. Questions so far? I'm not a business teacher.
So how this goes, I appreciate that Carl always gives us 1 month, so typically we wouldn't see this until November, then vote on it in December. So between now and next board meeting, any scenario you want to have them run, any questions, anything that you would want to see on how the math would look, change, whatever, on, okay, if we did go with the EAV and left into the truth and taxation hearing versus 105, that was the conversation I had today a little bit, just because even if we don't raise anything, the truth and taxation hearing itself is gonna look like you guys are raising my taxes. No, we're not. The EAV is just going up. And then there's other things to think about as you're thinking about the levy. We've got inflation rates going up, and then we have a contract to work on next year, which we've been monitoring what things have been going around the area, and it's gonna be probably higher than what we've traditionally done, so we've gotta keep those things in mind as well.
Perry Miller retired from Rockridge last year, superintendent. He was in the same, they were in the same situation where the EAV had increased so much, if they kept their tax rate stable, they had to have their truth in taxation. And they threw their hands up and said, well, we're gonna keep the rate the same and have the truth in taxation hearing because it's going to be keeping the rate the same because the EAV went up. It's gonna be more than 105%. I don't know that anybody showed up to their hearing.
So what does that actually entail?
Publication in the paper and then open public comment. Same thing we have to do for the budget.
Still in this setting, it's not, like when you say hearing, I'm talking about the treasurers in the county, like we're not at the courthouse or anything.
No, yeah, we'd be in here and you'd open it up to anybody who wanted to speak either for or against prior to a vote on the levy.
Gotcha.
And again, now also part of that is you can take this with, so that you can take a look at some of the numbers that we've put in there. As Reese alluded to, the ed fund is bumped up more. That's where the majority of the salaries come from, so that we can start planning ahead for that. One big thing to remember is this represents an increase of about $346,000 over last year in the ed fund. It doesn't necessarily have to be that much, but one thing to keep in mind is all that construction money that was sitting in the account last year bearing $450,000, $500,000 of interest got paid out. So we're not bringing in, we're still bringing in significantly more than when interest rates were at 1/4 of a point. We just don't have the balance right now to be drawing all that interest. So that's literally what balanced the budget. You'll be able to tell when you look back at the fine print. So.
What would that differential been without the construction money?
Without the interest we gained from that, it would have been about a net zero
Flat
budget, yeah. So.
Any questions? Okay.
All right, awesome.
Moving over to communication and correspondence. Does anybody have anything? You got one?
Former Sherrard High School librarian Pat Lane, who is the mother of Liz Ingwall at Winola, passed away. Liz's dad, her husband, was actually my high school principal at Winola, and I will attend the visitation on Friday as a representative of the district. So, if you knew who Miss Lane was, she was there for a long time.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to move into closed session in accordance with 5 LSC section 120C subsection C subsection 6 through 12, 16, and 21. Is there a second?
Second. A motion was made by Mrs. Lyon and seconded by Mr. Dominic to go into executive session. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Did you just go for it?